Guys, let's dig in here to today's topic. To niche or not to niche? That is the question. And what I have noticed is that there are some coaches out there who are talking about, I see these kind of social media posts like, you can coach anybody, or here's how to hit a 10K month without a coaching niche. You don't need a niche, right? There's kind of two different trains of thought. Need a niche, don't need a niche. So I figured I'd do a session on this, to niche or not to niche. It's kind of the age-old question, right? That leaves a lot of coaches kind of scratching their heads. So that's what I want to cover in today's training, to niche or not to niche. I want to talk about the pros and the cons of niching down, because there's pros and cons. I want to talk about the pros and the cons of ditching the niche. And then I want you guys to really walk away from this training with which is the right option for you. I can't really tell you which is the right option for you. Of course, I have a viewpoint on this topic, but at the end of the day, what I hope this training will do is kind of help you take a look from a 30,000 foot view at the pros and cons of each side, so you can kind of make an informed decision for yourself. As always, when I do these trainings, I don't want this to be just me talking at you. That's why I go live versus filming something that's recorded. I want you guys to be asking me questions, sharing your thoughts. If you can think of a pro or a con of either side of the coin, share it. I want this to be an interactive dialogue. So, if you're coming to this training with a question in your brain on this topic, please drop it into the comments. That's what I'm here for. Before we get into, I'm thinking the way I'm going to run this is, got my trusty whiteboard. I'm going to kind of map out almost like a table on my whiteboard with the pros and the cons, and we'll kind of sketch it out so we can see for ourselves. But before I get into that, I do want to, of course, take a hot minute to talk about what is a niche. What is a niche, right? That's like a word we hear a lot, but sometimes it's like, wait a sec, what even is a niche? So I want to say, from a definition standpoint, what is a niche? You could think of a niche as your specialty. You could think of a niche as a smaller segment of a larger market. And when I say market, I mean the customers or the industry that you serve, right? So there's this larger market out there, and you're taking a piece of the pie. It's a smaller segment. Now, a smaller segment of a larger market also having its own unique needs and characteristics, right? When you take a slice of the market and say, this is my slice, this is my niche, it's going to have its own unique needs and characteristics. The formula that we usually utilize when it comes to having a coaching niche is I help who with what so that. So I'm going to say that again. And if some of my team could drop that into the comments. The formula when you're creating your niche is I help who with what so that. So that's the statement that people pull together when they select a niche. I help ABC demographic take XYZ action so that they can achieve LMNOP result, right? The who is the demographic, the what is the action they take, and then the so that what? So that they can receive, and then you input the number one outcome or result that your market wants to receive. So that's kind of like, I just wanted to give you guys a hot minute of what are we even talking about here, right? So that's what a niche is. Drop me a comment if that makes sense to you as far as the definition, if you're tracking, or if you have any questions on the definition of a niche here. Okay, so you guys are going to see me looking down every so often, just making sure everybody's tracking. You don't have any questions. All right, let's dive in here. Pros and cons. Let's actually start off with the pros and cons of ditching the niche. let's start there. The pros and cons of ditching a niche. So we're going to start out with no niche. Okay, so I'm going to see if I can write this on the board, and hopefully you guys can understand or read my copy here. So let's see. Pull my camera up here so I can kind of make sure you guys are reading my writing here. Okay, so we're talking about no niche. Okay, that's where we're going to start. So pros and cons. Little table here. Actually, I don't want to do this. Yeah, I could do it like that. Pros and cons. So on this side is the pro. The pros. On this side is the cons. Okay. So here we go. Buckle up. Here we go. Again, the purpose of this training is I want you to be able to walk away from this and be able to make an informed decision for yourself as far as, do I choose a niche or do I not? So let's talk about the pros of not having a niche. And side note, if you can think of a pro of not having a niche, drop it into the comments. Drop it into the comments. So the first pro of not having a niche is you don't have to stress or spend time or energy choosing a niche. You're done, right? It's like, I don't have a niche. I'm a life coach. I coach whoever comes to me that I like their energy, right? So that's the first pro of not having a niche. You're done. No stress or time being spent here. No stress or time. And again, I say stress because I know people put a lot of pressure on themselves sometimes when they choose a niche. People put a lot of pressure on themselves when they choose a niche, right? So if you're, hey, I'm a life coach, I coach anyone, you're done. You're not putting any pressure on yourself. I would say the second pro of not having a niche is that you can coach anyone who comes to you, right? You can sit on an airplane and the person that sits next to you is telling you what their problems are, and you say, hey, I'm a life coach. I can help you with that, right? Or you're at a bus stop, or you're at the grocery store, or whatever, right? You're at a family event and you're talking to your cousin's neighbor, and they have some kind of an issue. It doesn't matter who you're talking to. You can coach anyone who comes to you, right? And I hear this a lot sometimes from coaches that say, well, Betty, I like coaching different types of clients. I like coaching different types of clients, right? So the pro is you can coach anyone who comes to you. Can coach anyone. Okay. The third pro of not having a niche is that, again, call me out if I'm off on this, but what I see is that coaches love to be of service to everyone. We love to be of service to everyone. That's why we do what we do. And sometimes it can feel painful to feel as though we're leaving people out, right? It might even, at least initially, feel better to just say, I can just coach whoever comes to me. For those of you from IPEC is where I was certified. We talk about energy levels in IPEC, and I think about energy level 4, which is this energy level where we just want to be of service, and it's this compassionate energy level. That's what being a coach is. So to say, you know what, I'm going to open my arms, I'm going to coach whoever comes to me, that might feel good, right? So being of service to everyone, right? Of service. Service to everyone. Right? And that might feel better. Feel better. Right? Initially, that could feel better. The fourth pro of not having a niche is that you can play in the sandbox for a longer amount of time in terms of coaching different people, right? It's like going to an ice cream shop. I'm going to try this flavor. I'm going to try that flavor. I'm going to try that flavor. So you can play in the sandbox longer in terms of coaching different types of people and trying out different flavors. That could lead to helping you in making a decision on choosing a niche down the road, right? So if you, hey, I'm going to just for now coach whoever comes to me, right? Then maybe down the road, you start to learn, okay, I like this type of person. I like this type of problem. That could help inform you down the road on, making a decision on a niche. So you can play in the sandbox longer. Play in sandbox longer. Help make niche decision down the road. Okay. So that says, I'm like reading my copy. It says play in the sandbox longer, which could help you make a niche decision down the road. Because you can say, hey, I already coached a relationship problem, and then I coached a career problem, and I did all that for a year, and then I figured out this is the one I really like. Okay, so to me, those are the pros of not choosing a niche. Now, feel free to share if you can think of other pros of not having a niche. Glad to talk those out if you have more ideas there. Hey, Nita, thanks for joining us. Stasha says, great summary of the formula. Very interested in this topic as I'm at the very start of launching my own business. Well, Stasha, you are in the right place, and this is definitely the topic you want to start with. Awesome. Okay. So throw in the comments if you can think of any other pros of not having a niche. In the meantime, I am moving on to talking about the cons. The cons of having no niche. The cons of having no niche. So if you don't have a niche, what are some of the cons? The first con that comes to mind is that without a niche, you cannot build a signature methodology for your coaching package, because without a niche, you are coaching too many different types of people. Okay, so I'm going to write it on the board, and then I'm going to explain this. No signature method. Okay. So here's what I mean by this. All of you need to create at some point in your business a unique signature methodology for your clients. Your signature methodology is 3 to 5 steps or pillars that gets your clients from pain, when they come to you, they're in pain, to dream. For example, my unique signature methodology is the 5 C's of building a coaching business. If you go to my website, again, I think I have a link in the comments there. If you go to my website, if you go to my services page, you will see my signature method, the 5 C's of building a coaching practice. That's my method. Those are the steps I walk the clients through that join my program. So what I'm saying is, if you do not have a niche, what happens is somebody comes to you and says, I've got a relationship problem. So you're coaching them through this relationship problem. You might even create a unique signature method for that relationship person because you want to have some kind of structure to coaching them. The next person that comes to you says, well, I hate my job and I want a new career. You're like, okay, let me put aside the relationship method. Let me come up with a method to help this person with their career problems, right? So what happens is every time you work with a new client, you either have to build a new package. I got a signature method for you. I got a signature method for you. I got one for you. Or you have to wing it, right? You show up and it's more of the method of just asking coaching questions, and there's no framework and there's no structure, right? So either you have to build a package or you have to wing it. So build new package each time, or wing it. Now, the reason I have that listed as a con is because, as you can imagine, if I don't have a niche, so anybody that has a problem that comes to me, and if I think in my head, well, I'm going to build some kind of framework for every person that comes to me, the relationship people, the career people, I got someone with a health problem, that is going to be exhausting. It's going to be exhausting. Or if I say, well, you know what, I'm not going to use a framework. I'm just going to ask the open-ended coaching questions. Not having a framework sometimes can be a con, because the client comes to you and doesn't quite understand that you have a plan, that you have a blueprint, right? To the client, you are winging it. And when the client sees that other coaches that they're potentially talking to have this structured formula laid out, you can imagine which coach they might end up wanting to work with. The one who shows up in their chair and simply asks coaching questions, and every session is kind of fly by the seat of our pants, or the coach who has a structured formula, right? Which coach is the client going to probably opt to work with? Okay, so that is why I have that listed as a con. I'm just gonna hop in and check my comments to make sure you guys are tracking. Okay, let's talk about the next con. So we're talking about cons of not having a coaching niche. The next con, it is harder to stand out online in a noisy space when you are not speaking to a specific person about a specific problem. Okay, and let me write this down. Hard to stand out online. Okay, and you guys have probably heard this old saying, when you speak to everyone, you are speaking to no one. When you speak to everyone, you're speaking to no one. So if you guys can imagine, there will come a time in your coaching business where, in order to attract clients, you will need to have a social media presence. So that's going to entail posting online. Now, as you guys can imagine, think about the way your brain works when you are on social media and you're scrolling. You're scrolling on social media. You got to think about, what is going to cause you to stop your scroll, to pause your scroll? Scroll, scroll, scroll. Are you going to pause your scroll for somebody who posts a social media post about, just life coaching in general and mindset and, kind of just the general concepts of coaching? Is that going to get you when you're scroll and there's all this stuff online? Or are you going to pause your scroll for the coach who posts on social media addressing you and your very specific problem? So for example, if you're a woman who's an executive who's going through a divorce with her husband and is trying to balance being a mom, going to work, and getting through this horrible, breakup / divorce with the person she thought she loved. And here you are in pain, and you come home from work, and you're kind of mindlessly scrolling online. And you see somebody post, hey, executive woman, you don't have to go through your divorce alone. Build a team of people to support you through this. And the social media post talks through how this executive woman can build a team of people to support her. That, right, as I'm going through that pain, That's going to be the kind of thing I'm like, oh my gosh, she's speaking to me. How did she find me? And that's going to pique my curiosity. You see the difference? So the con here of not having a niche, it is harder to stand out online in a noisy space when you're not speaking to a specific person about a specific problem. When you speak to everyone, you're speaking to no one, okay? The next con of not having a niche, it is more difficult to write content marketing. So I'm talking about writing social media posts, writing emails for those of you that use like MailChimp, right, or ConvertKit, and you're writing an email to your email list. It is more difficult, it is more challenging to write content marketing copy. Why? Because you are not speaking to just one person, okay? Hard to write content marketing. Okay. So if I'm a life coach and I work with anybody on any problem, and I sit down and I'm like, okay, let me write an email to my email list today, or let me write a social media post, and I sit down, I'm like, today's my content day. I'm going to do my content marketing today. It is challenging to write copy when I'm like, wait a second, who am I speaking to in this copy? Am I going to write an email to the 20 people on my email list who are going through a divorce? Or am I going to write an email to the 30 people on my email list that are more focused on health-related issues? Who am I talking to? Who's my ideal client avatar profile? Right? And for those of you familiar with the term ideal client avatar profile, everybody should have an ideal client avatar profile. That is something I teach in my program, how to create this profile. Who is this person I'm talking to? What does she do with her day? What does she look like? What's her typical day? Or his? Is it a female or a male? If you think about any Fortune 500 company, and that's my background, I come from a Fortune 500 background. I worked in corporate communications, so this is why I'm very passionate about copy and content marketing. Every Fortune 500 company has an ideal client avatar profile, and everybody in the company is aware of who that person is, so that when you sit down to write copy, you're speaking to them. It is very hard to write copy. Sorry, I have a runny nose today. It's very hard to write copy when you don't know who you're speaking to. The copy ends up being flat. The copy ends up falling flat. I challenge you guys to scroll through your social media today. You will notice the people who write posts where they're just kind of generic, speaking about kind of high level topics, it falls flat, versus the people speaking to a very specific segment of the population, and they're eliciting emotions that those people are going through with their challenges. Those are the social media posts that pop, that get engagement. I challenge you guys to notice that. So again, just to summarize, the con here with not having a niche, it is very challenging to write content marketing because you don't know who you're speaking to. Who am I writing to? I'll say one more thing. When some of you in the future may decide to create a podcast, again, this is something that I teach in my program. You may decide to start your own podcast. What they say, they being the experts, is when you're on your podcast and you're recording, you're supposed to be envisioning in your head your ideal client avatar, like looking at you, like you're having a conversation with them. Because then the podcast comes across so much more rich when you're speaking to that one person versus addressing everyone in the world, right? So when you're speaking to everyone, you're speaking to no one. The next con of not having a niche, website copy. Website copy becomes very generalized. If you are writing your website, and I'll tell you this right now, because one of the things I do with my clients is I audit their website copy. And I have website templates that I use with my clients, but if they already have a website, I'm going to audit their copy. If you don't have a niche, your website copy is going to fall flat. because it's going to be very generalized. Again, it's the same problem. You're speaking to no one because you're speaking to so many people. Versus, again, you guys can hop onto my website, look at my homepage. I am speaking to such a specific person with such a specific problem, right? Your website copy should have the pain points that your specific niche is going through, and your website copy on the homepage should also be talking about the dream, the goal, the vision that your specific person is going through. My challenges are very different from your challenges. Somebody who might look at me as like their ideal client avatar is probably going to talk to me different than they might speak to one of you, right? Because we're different segments of the market. So again, to summarize here, website copy is going to fall flat when you're speaking to no one. I always say to my clients when I'm helping them with their website copy, and I do have templates I provide my clients for website copy, but I always say what you want when someone comes to your website, you want that person to be looking at your website and doing this, nodding their head up and down. Oh my gosh, that's me. That's me. She's speaking to me. I have people that get on the phone with me and they'll say, Betty, when I read your website copy, I literally felt like you were in my head. That's where we want to go versus no niche. How can you do that? Because you don't even know who you're speaking to out there, right? The next con of not having a niche, executing outreach. Executing outreach is a struggle when you don't know who you are outreaching to. Because without a niche, you're like, I'll work with anybody. I'll work with anybody. So how do you outreach? How do you outreach? And side note, for those of you not familiar with what I mean when I say outreach, outreach is, it's outreaching, it's DMing people, it's building relationships with people online. Outreaching is a must in your business. It's a must, no matter your financial target. Most of my clients are, looking to replace their corporate income with their coaching business. So if you're looking to surpass that six-figure mark, you must be outreaching. That's one of the first questions I ask people. If they're like, I'm not hitting my financial goals, are you consistently outreaching every single day? If you're not, you are not going to be hitting your financial targets. You have to be outreaching. Now, whether you're doing the outreach yourself, or you can hire a virtual assistant who does outreach for you. You can hire an agency. There are plenty of agencies out there who will do outreach for your business. You could use a social seller. You could hire somebody who does this outreach for you. The bottom line here is whoever's doing the outreach needs to know specifically who to target online, or outreach won't work. Right? You can imagine hiring someone and saying, yes, I want you to be my social seller. I want you to outreach for me and build relationships with people and bring them into my business. Your social seller is going to say, okay, who am I targeting? What Facebook groups do I go to? Who is this person? Right? You can't just tell them, yeah, target whoever. It doesn't work that way. So again, the con here is executing outreach is a struggle when you don't know who you're outreaching to, and outreaching is a non-negotiable of something that has to go on in your business in order to be hitting your financial targets. So executing outreach doesn't work. Okay. Raise your hand here. Give me an emoji if you're tracking with me. Drop me an emoji in the comments if you're tracking with me. And if you're not, drop me a comment. Drop me a question so I can address it. Hey, Rena, thanks for watching with us. Let's see. Let's see what Heather says. Heather says, I found that building a package for each client caused some financial uncertainty as well because all packages had different costs. Exactly. It is a struggle to have a different package for every type of person that you work with. It is a struggle. All right. Okay, let's move on to the next one here. The next con, prospects are less likely to respond to your outreach. So executing the outreach is a struggle. That's a con. The next con is prospects are less likely to respond to your outreach when you can't explain why you are outreaching to them because you're working with anybody. That's the first thing somebody wants to know when you outreach to them. They're like, why me? Like, there's a million bazillion people online. You just DM'd me. Why? Why me? Right? Versus if you have a niche and your niche matches who they are, right? What's the first thing you do when someone outreaches to you? Typically, if it's not slimy, like, like salesy, that's not outreaching, by the way. People that send salesy, like, messages, they hit you up in the DMs selling. That's not outreaching is building relationships with people. Now that will eventually lead to a client, but it's not pitching people in the DMs, by the way. Again, something I teach in my program. But again, if you have a niche and your niche matches who you outreach to, what's the first thing someone does when you send them a message? They click on your profile. Now, if your profile is optimized, talking about who you help with what, people are like, oh yeah, I get it. I get why she's outreaching to me. But if you're just DMing whoever, because you don't have a niche, people are like, what is this person doing? They may not have even accept your LinkedIn connection request or your friend request on Facebook because they're like, who is this person? Why me? So again, the con here is prospects are less likely to respond to outreach, which is a non-negotiable, when you can't explain why you are outreaching to them because you work with anyone. Prospects don't respond to outreach. Okay, much more difficult. Much more difficult. The next con, it's tough to get referrals. It's tough to get referrals when you cannot explain the type of person you work with and the specific problem that you solve. People don't know who to refer you to. Tough to get referrals. I remember when I first started for like the first year, I was in BNI for, drop a comment if you're familiar with BNI. I think it stands for Business Networking International. I did that for like the first year, and it wasn't bad. But I remember in that group, the whole thing was we'd go around the group and people would essentially explain their niche. It wasn't all coaches, right? It was all different types of businesses. So everybody would have to say, here's my ideal client and here's the problem I solve. And I remember at the time, I hit six figures my first year as a career coach. That's how I started. And I remember I was very specific. I said, I help unfulfilled corporate women who are at the director or vice president level. They're unhappy in their jobs. I help them identify what kind of career brings them passion, right? So immediately, I remember there was a guy in BNI who sat next to me. I think he was a financial advisor. And he said, oh, I know two people exactly like that. She's a corporate vice president. She hates her job, but she doesn't know what else she wants to do. And I remember him telling me, he's like, it's super helpful how specific you are. He goes, because I can immediately think about who to refer to you. And that was the whole point of the group. So if you're a life coach helping anybody, I help anyone. If you got a problem, I can. And that's the hard part too, guys, isn't it? The hard part is, as coaches, we can help anyone. It's like a blessing and a curse. We can help anyone. But if you show up to a referral group like BNI and say, yeah, if somebody's got an issue, I can coach them through it. They're going to be like, well, I don't even know. They can't even come up with who to refer to you, right? So harder to get referrals. It is also harder for clients to find you. Hard for clients to find you. That's the name of the game, right? We don't want to just be hunting people down. We want our clients to find us. So you got to put yourself in the shoes, in the headspace of your client. If your client is sitting down in front of their computer, your prospective client, right? They're sitting down and they're like, okay, I'm going to search whatever type of coach that I need help with, right? Most people don't search life coach. Most people are thinking, this is the problem that keeps me up at night. It's my job. Let me search for a career coach. This is the problem that keeps me up at night. It's building my coaching business. Let me search for a business coach for coaches. You see what I'm saying here? What are your clients Googling when they sit down looking for help? So if they're searching the type of coach you are, or they're searching the type of problem that they need help solving, how to build a coaching business, how to save my marriage, how to lose 20 pounds, right? If you're helping everyone or you're solving generic problems, people cannot find you. They can't find you. And at the end of the day, you want to be at the top of the search results. When people are searching, you want to come up to the top. And the more specific you are, the more at the top of the search results you will be. Okay? On that topic, not having a specific niche is going to hurt your website and your LinkedIn profile SEO. So the search engine optimization of your website or your LinkedIn profile. If you don't have a niche, it's going to hurt your SEO. Here's what I mean by that. If people can't find you, they're not clicking on your website because you're so generalized, right? You want to be at the top. When somebody Googles the type of coach you are or the type of problem you solve, you want to be at the top of that. So it's going to be very difficult. Like say you hired a search engine optimization expert and said, hey, help me out with my website. I want more people to find me and click on me. They're not going to work with you because they're going to say, I don't know how to do that when you're working with anyone. You can't optimize that from a search perspective. The next thing here, if a client is prospective client, I want, again, always be putting yourself in the head of your prospective client. Let's imagine they're choosing between 3 coaches. And let's see who we got with us today. So Stasha. And by the way, guys, if you're considering a niche, and I know many of you don't know what your niche is yet, and that's why you're here, and that's awesome. But if you're considering one, drop it in the comments. What niches are you considering? But I'll use me as an example. Let's say a client is choosing between 3 coaches. They're probably going to go with the coach who works with people just like them and solves the exact problem that they need help with. That's just human nature. Clients prefer to work with specialists and experts over generalists. Here, I'll give you an example that I went through. So a while back, I wanted to hire a health coach. Now, again, just to kind of paint the picture of, my profile, who am I? As far as like, I'm the ideal client avatar for this health coach. I'm a woman. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm in my 40s. For me, what was the problem I wanted help solving? I wanted help with the mindset part of health and the accountability part of health and some nutrition help. So I didn't want just a health coach just to be telling me to exercise. I kind of already knew, like everybody knows to lose weight or to get in shape. Yeah, you exercise, you eat better. But the hard part about that from a health perspective is the mindset part and keeping yourself accountable to doing what you know you have to do. That's the hard part. Very specific who I am and what I was looking for. So I remember I did my research on health coaches and I'm a research person. The generic health coaches for me were not appealing because I don't want to work with someone who's helping everybody with everything when it comes to health. I wanted to work with someone very specific to my situation. And honestly, I was willing to pay a very premium price for that. I was willing to pay a premium price. After researching, I came across a health coach who specialized in mindset and nutrition for women in their 40s. I remember she wrote her copy. She was talking about, and you can still eat chocolate, in this. And I'm like, oh, she's talking to me. I freaking love chocolate, right? So her copy was so specifically talking to me, her ideal client avatar profile. I immediately hired her. I didn't even interview other health coaches because she was so specific with her who she helped with what. Okay, so give me a thumbs up if that example makes sense to you as far as the health coach example. Okay. The next con of not having a niche, it is harder to get booked when it comes to PR. So for example, part of what I teach my clients is, blowing up your PR and publicity. You want to get booked speaking on other people's podcasts. It's harder to get booked when you don't have a specific angle, who you help with what, versus a general life coach. You will see, if you ever go into a Facebook group for podcasters, they often post and they're talking about, hey, I need this type of person. I need this type of person to interview on my podcast. And they'll be very specific. It is tough to get booked when you raise your hand and say, hey, I'll come on your podcast and speak. And they're like, okay, great. What's your angle? And you're like, oh, well, I coach whoever has a problem with whatever. They're going to be like, I don't know what to do with that. That's not, what's the podcast topic, right? Who are we speaking to here? They want people to come on their podcast that are going to align with their audience. And if you're speaking to everybody, that's not going to do anything for them. So again, it's going to be harder for you without a niche from a PR example, and you want to be getting booked speaking on other people's podcasts. Why? Because that's going to attract more clients to you. You're pulling in people from their audience to your email list, to your social media profile, so you can get more potential clients. So PR. Two more cons, and then we're going to move on. The next con, coaches make more money with a niche, especially in the first 1 to 5 years of business. Coaches make more money with a niche in the first 1 to 5 years of business than without a niche. Now, the big gurus out there like Tony Robbins, right? And people like that are very general. Now, their brand is huge. They've been around forever, right? So for them, they can easily go without a niche. It's not about their niche. It's about them. They are this huge name, huge brand. They've been around forever. But it's a very different story for coaches who are just starting out and are unknown. When you're just starting out and you're unknown, you're not a Tony Robbins who's been around forever and people know his face and his name. And you'll notice, and here's the thing too, over time, you want to start small, but over time, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, you can start to, it's almost like my analogy is like an upside down umbrella. You imagine having like an upside down umbrella and you're at the tip with your niche. Over time, you can open that up upside down and widen, who you're speaking to as you start to gain traction, as you start to gain recognition. Right? And that's what the big gurus do, is over time, they can do that because they've been around so long and people recognize them. It is different when you're just starting out. It is different. So make more money. My example here for you guys, again, I started out as a career coach before I moved into business coaching. And what I'll say is, so I switched my niche, right? Eventually. I don't regret at all starting out with career coaching. It was not the wrong choice. For those of you afraid, I don't make the wrong choice. There is no wrong. You guys know that from coaching. There's no right or wrong, right? It's we win or we learn, right? You guys all know that. So I don't regret that my first year was career coaching at all. Career coaching got me to 6 figures my first year in business. It was awesome. I got to dip my toe in the water. I got to work with awesome people. Had I stayed generic that first year, I could have chose my first year. Like, I'm not quite sure about the niche. Let me just play my first year. Let me just play. Had I done that, and I could have totally done that, there's no way I would have hit that 6-figure mark. Wouldn't have happened. Wouldn't have happened, right? So choosing a niche, taking action, that got me to my financial target. And it also helped me ultimately understand that, you know what, my passion and my expertise is really business and marketing. And those are actually the clients that I attract, right? So over time, by taking action, I was able to figure that out. But in the meantime, I hit my financial target and I was able to support my family without a corporate job. So, you know, that to me, that's a major, major pro. And rest assured, you can change your niche over time. This is not us signing away our lives. So, you know, that to me is a con of not having a niche, is you're just not going to make as much money your first year in business. Just not going to happen. The last con is you can't be positioned as an expert authority when you're very general and broad. You cannot be positioned as an expert authority when you're very general and broad. Not expert authority. Okay. And I will tell you guys, that is my goal for all of you. That is my goal for all of my clients. That's why they hire me, is that, you know, if I could sprinkle fairy dust on everybody watching this live, I want you to rise to the cream of the crop, the top of your market as the expert authority. I want you to be the go-to in your niche. So when somebody thinks about, oh yeah, divorce coaching for, you know, executive women, they're like, oh yes, it's Marie. Marie is the perfect person. Marie is the one who knows everything on that topic. All of you should have a goal of becoming an expert authority in your market, the go-to person. When that happens for you, it's like attracting bees to a honey jar. People find you, and it's really, really cool, right? Versus you having to hunt people down. So that's my synopsis here. We kind of took the most time talking about no niche. Drop me a question if you have a comment. And also drop me a comment regarding which one of these, whether a pro or a con, was the most powerful call out for you. So when it comes to no niche, drop me a comment. Which one of these pros or cons that we discussed was the most powerful for you in understanding? Okay, gonna move on here because I know we have about 10 minutes left to talk about the niche. So now we're gonna talk about niche, pros and cons. All this here. Okay, get through this in 10 minutes here. So, you know, keeping it real, the pros and cons of having a niche, quite frankly, you guys know this, it's a flip. It's a flip of everything we just talked about, which is why I can cover this in 10 minutes. We'll start with the cons of having a niche. The cons are, first, you got to do the work. You got to do the work. If you're going to say, I'm choosing a niche, you got to do the work. I'm saying that's a con because it's not easy. You have to do market research to ensure your niche is profitable. You've got to write a powerful I help who with what so that statement. You have to conduct ICA surveys and competition research. And we're going to then take that collateral and cross-reference it with your I help who with what statement, right? So you got to do the work. Do the work. And it's not easy, but that's why people hire me, is because I've already been there, done that, right? You don't have to reinvent the wheel, right? You got to do the work, but that's what I walk my clients through. Market validation, competition research, right? Editing, helping them edit their messaging so that it attracts the right type of client. But that can be a con to some people that don't want to do the work. You got to do the work. The next con, you may end up having to refer clients to other coaches. Can't work with everyone. Now that may not always happen, but you know, I'll say for me personally, if somebody came to me and said, Betty, I'm having a relationship issue, will you coach me through that? I'd probably say no, but I know a great relationship coach I can refer you to, right? So you are going to attract a ton of people that are your people, but then you may be referring out the people that are not your people. You might feel guilt. You might feel guilt leaving people out as far as who you help. Right? You might feel guilty, like I want to help everybody, right? And it might feel like pressure. It might feel like pressure to choose. Right? So again, a lot of these are more emotions and feelings, some of the cons. As coaches, we know that if we change the thought, we change the feeling. Change the feeling, change the action, change the action, change the outcome. So that's the good news with some of these cons when it comes to choosing a niche. Lots of them are feeling related, right? So when you feel that guilt and that pressure and right, those kind of things, that can be altered if you change the way that you look at this scenario. So those are some of the cons of choosing a niche. The pros of choosing a niche: one signature method, one coaching package. One signature method. So it's simplified. I don't have to reinvent the wheel for every client I work with. The second pro, it's easy to write content marketing, social media, and emails because I'm only speaking to one person. Makes it so easy. I have my profile in front of me of who that person is, and I'm writing to them like I'm writing to my best friend. It's easy to draft content marketing. Content writing. Okay. I will say this is a pro. You can still coach different types of people, especially in the beginning when you're just getting started, if you like their energy. So this is an interesting scenario. My example of this, when I was a career coach and I was targeting executive female corporate directors, vice presidents, I had two men in the military reach out and say, Betty, I really like your content. I really like your videos. I really like what you teach. I know you work with that type of person, but would you consider an exception for me? And you know what? I got on the phone with them and I loved their energy, and the package I offered aligned with how I could potentially help them. And I took them on as clients, right? Because we had alignment of energy and the outcome that they wanted to achieve. So it isn't so cut and dry that like, oh, you're not the exact person, I have to send you off somewhere else, especially in the beginning. It's easier to stand out online. So when you're writing social media social media content speaking to a specific person about a specific problem, we talked about this before, that's what gets people to slow their scroll. Oh my gosh, she's addressing the exact problem that's keeping me up at night. This is what helps you to stand out online. Your website copy is easier to create and it's more effective, because it's super specific and you're speaking to one type of person. People are nodding their heads when they're reading your website copy. She's speaking to me. And when you can get them to nod their heads, that's when they're going to book a call. Okay? Website copy. Outreach, we talked about outreach. It is so much easier when you know who you're outreaching to, right? You know who you're outreaching to. You can talk to your VA or whoever you're hiring for outreach and say, this is my segment of the market. It's a female or a male. You don't have to say female or male. I'm just giving you an example. Female or male, this is their job title. This is their industry. They have kids or they don't have kids. Whoever your profile is, it makes outreach so much easier. And it also allows prospects to respond to you at a much higher rate, because they understand, oh, I get why she's reaching out to me, right? Hey, join my Facebook group, right, for XYZ type of people. And they're like, perfect, that's the type of person I am. So prospects respond at a higher rate. Response, right? It's, again, this is the flip. It's easier to get referrals. It's so much easier. People are like, oh yeah, Sasha works with this type of a person who has this type of a problem. My neighbor is like, would be perfect for her. So referrals are so much easier. Okay. It's easier for clients to find you when they're typing in the type of coach you are into Google, or they're typing in the problem they need solved. It's easier for them to find you. It's going to drive the SEO of your website and your LinkedIn profile, by the way. When you're very specific on your LinkedIn profile and people on LinkedIn are searching for a certain type of coach, you'll rise to the top of the search results, right? So your SEO is going to improve. And we want that. That helps people find us. When you are on a discovery call with a prospect and they tell you, you know, I'm talking to 2 other coaches, they are much more likely to go with you if you specifically help that type of person you're talking to with the specific problem they need help solving. If they're speaking to other generalist coaches, you've already won, right? Clients are more likely to go with you. We talked about PR. It's much easier to get booked for PR. We talked about financial targets. It's much easier to hit a financial target in your first 1 to 5 years with a niche. And we talk about how this is going to position you as an expert authority in the market. When you choose a niche, right, that's when we can really blow you up as the expert authority in the market, which we want, because that's what allows people to seek you out. Okay, I just stopped writing because I know we're almost at time here. So let me just summarize before we sign off here. Again, drop into the comments after what you learned today, because it's up to you. It's up to you, pros and cons, right? It's up to you. Drop into the comments. Are you going niche? Are you going no niche? And why? And why? Drop into the comments. So here's my consensus before we sign off. Choosing a niche, 1, it just makes your life easier. Like, if I could put it very simply, it makes your life easier as a coach for you. Choosing a niche makes life easier on you. You got one signature method and package versus having to come up with a new coaching method for each client. It's easier for you to write social media copy. It's easier for you to write website copy. It's easier to attract clients to you, which leads me into the second consensus here. A niche attracts more clients to you, which allows you to make more money faster and easier, because human beings want to work with experts versus generalists. And because human beings would rather work with someone who specifically solves their type of problem versus someone who solves any old problem, right? So 1, choosing a niche makes life easier on you as a coach. 2, choosing a niche attracts more clients to you. And 3, choosing a niche positions you as an expert authority in the market, right? Oh, that's the go-to person on this problem. And when you are positioned as an expert authority in the market, that is going to be what attracts clients to you. And it's the coolest thing when you wake up and you have discovery calls booked because you are seen as an expert authority in the market and people are coming to you.